everyone. This is John Daly again with BQB Publishing. I'm here today with Vanessa Lafleur, author of the Hope for the Best young adult fiction series. How are you doing today, Vanessa?
I'm pretty good.
Good, good. So tell me a little bit about yourself, your background and your interests.
I'm a high school English teacher and also the head speech coach at the school, so that occupies a huge chunk of my time. I also love analyzing literature, reading, writing, so I'm working on a graduate degree in something along those lines, English creative writing, kind of deciding where to go from there. Working on that slowly, so that's another chunk of my time. And then, of course, all of the writing. If it's warm outside, which we're getting closer to, I like to spend all of my time outside, working in the garden. I like to grow all kinds of different things. And of course, taking my reading and writing stuff outside instead of having to do that inside all the time.
Very good, very good. So now there are currently three books in your series, Hope for the Best. Hope for the Best was the first book. It's also the name of the series, but that first book came out in 2020. Tomorrow Will Be Better, released last year, and Prepare for the Worst is due out this September, and it's already available for pre-order. Now, what I find interesting right off the bat about this series is that it takes place during a pandemic. Yet you wrote these books, or at least the first two books, maybe all three, before the real life pandemic ever took place. In fact, your book released, the first one, on April 1st, 2020, right as COVID was beginning to make its way through the United States. Now, being that there have been lots of conspiracy theories tossed out there over the past couple of years in regard to COVID-19 and the pandemic, has anyone accused you of being behind the whole thing? Perhaps an elaborate publicity stunt on your part to sell more books?
Well, no one's no one's taken it that far. At least if they have, they haven't told me about it. So I haven't heard that much. I did have some people during that time who had started reading it and they called me or they emailed me and they said, "Do you know the future? Did you know this was going to happen?" And so that was interesting. And I kind of had to explain, no, I did like all of this research. It was like 10 years worth of research on pandemics and learning all of this stuff. And then when I saw it actually coming, like it was going to happen, I was like, no way, this can coincide. And it was just one of those super weird coincidences. But it was also kind of scary because I felt like I knew way too much about pandemics when we were walking into a real life one. So I was like, I wish I didn't know all of this stuff now.
Right, right. And I make that joke, but in real life, it was a very inopportune time for people that were having books come out around that time. I had one a few months right before then, and yours came out right then because bookstores were closing down. So that's another reason that I'm pretty sure you were not behind it. But who knows? That was But pandemic aside, can you describe to readers what the series is about and give us an introduction to some of its main characters?
Well, it's set in a dystopian future world in 2090, so quite a ways in the future. And of course, there's a lot of obstacles going on during that time. Of course, there's a pandemic, that's a big one. There's kind of ideas that the country is kind of somewhat collapsed because a lot of the adult population has been lost to that pandemic. So there's kind of younger people, teenagers trying to figure out what they should do, what their place is in that world, and kind of where they should go from there to move forward into their futures. So in the first book, in Hope for the Best, it kind of gives a wider view of the whole country and kind of what's going on there and the collapse. We have Lorena, she's the main character of that book, and she's on the run. We find out she has this pendant. She has no idea what it is, but there's a detective after her trying to get it. And that's what is kind of keeping her moving, trying to get away from him, trying to figure out what it is, what she should do with it. And along the way, she meets two new friends, Nick and Aaron, and they kind of work together to overcome all of these obstacles that have been created in this world in order to survive and hopefully get away. They're trying to get to a town called Maybe, Nebraska, because she remembers that from her childhood. She sees it as a safe place. And so when we get to Tomorrow Will Be Better, that's kind of where we pick up in that town, looking at what's going on there. And we have two characters narrating that book. So Rochelle does part of it and Charlie does part of it. And the two of them are also connected to this whole pendant thing, whether they know it or not. It's something they kind of figure out along the way. But by the time they get to the end there, they're all trying to figure out what's going on with that, what's happening with that, and what they should do with it, living in this world and not having a whole lot of people to turn to that they can trust.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, that sounds really interesting, and I know that you've gotten some great reviews on the books for sure. So that's always exciting. Now, as a high school English teacher, have you ever considered assigning your books to your students as required reading, and then sort of threatening to flunk them if they don't leave a 5-star review for you on Amazon? Because I would totally do that if I were you.
You know, that's kind of a good idea. Maybe I should maybe I should consider these things. But it is kind of funny. When Tomorrow Will Be Better came out in November, I did a book reading in all of my English classes, and the kids were pretty excited about it. And I did have a lot of them come up to me and say, "Why don't we just stop reading, whatever classic novel it is we're reading right now? We'll just study yours for the rest of this semester." And then you can explain it to us and you'll have all the answers to the questions. So, it hasn't quite worked its way into the curriculum yet. We're still focused on the classics, but maybe one day.
Yeah,
And I
you
have
never.
had the opportunity, I have had the opportunity, a few kids have asked me if they could do some extra credit to bring their grade up even more at the end of the semester. So I was like, well, here, you can read my book and write a report on it. I know it's not on Spark Notes, so that way you can't just, go and find the cheat sheet, and I know you're reading it. So that has been one advantage to being an author and a teacher.
Very good, very good. Yeah, that's a good idea. You could totally know if they try to cheat their way through it. You're like, that's not what I wrote. Sorry. So, this is a question I always like to ask of authors. For you, what has been the hardest part about writing these books?
The hardest part for me is just the actual time to write it. I have the ideas bouncing around in my head and I want to put them down on paper and I want them to sound just right, but I'm teaching right now and I have to grade this right now and there's this due right now for my graduate class. So the biggest challenge is always just having time to sit down, do the writing. It happens a lot during the summer. Usually that's when I can find the big chunks of time, but I always want to write. It just isn't always a time when I'm available to write.
So it's not so much that you ever have writer's block, it's kind of the opposite.
It's kind of the opposite. I have way too much going on.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you on that. I hear you on that. So what has been the most rewarding part about writing these books?
The most rewarding part is being able to share the experience with my students. Since I became a teacher 8 years ago, I've been telling them, I'm writing these books, they're going to be published one day, you're going to get to read them. And so they've kind of been along with me on this journey. And I teach at the school that I graduated from. So it's a really fun experience to be able to say, you know what, you guys can have these dreams too. And you might completely feel like you're going off course. I didn't think I was going to become a teacher and I didn't see teaching and writing as part of the same career, but that kind of happened. They joined up and so I can kind of show them, you can do all of these other things. You can still pursue your dreams at the same time and you can eventually get there. Sometimes it takes a long time. I've been out of high school for quite a while, been dreaming about this, but you eventually get there.
Well, that's a great lesson. That's a great lesson to teach for sure, and it's great that you can show them that in a physical way. So I thank you very much. This has been great getting to talk to you. It's always good to kind of talk to authors face to face who I've previously only had sort of email exchanges with. The next book in your series, Prepare for the Worst, will release in September, but readers, like I said, they can pre-order it now. It's available on Amazon, Barnes& Noble, all the other places. Can you tell people how to find out more about you and also your series?
You can find my website at vanessalafleur.com. I am on Facebook at Vanessa Lafleur Author and Instagram at VLaFleur Author. There's a lot of information out there. Those would probably be the main places to find information at this point in time.
Great, great. And I've seen your Instagram page. You have a lot of great artistic pictures of your books, which I love. So very cool, very cool. Keep up the good work and keep up the good writing. And I hope you have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.